Hi, I'm Michelle Begue with a look at what's happening in Latin America now. But first, our news trivia. Which country from Latin America has the most fans traveling to the Football World Cup celebrated in Qatar? We'll have the answer later. We're starting this week with an interesting report on the record number of U.S. citizens crossing the border to live in Mexico. My colleague Al Baverstock has more on this story.
The rate of Americans moving to Mexico has hit record highs, with the number of US citizens applying for Mexican residency almost doubling compared to the years prior to the pandemic. Remote work is now a far more common phenomenon. Perceptions of insecurity and violence in this country are easing, and runaway inflation is making life unaffordable in the States. But while the influx of dollars may contribute to this country's economy, the expats aren't universally welcomed. Rents have soared, traditional stores are being replaced by businesses aimed at digital nomads, and many locals are being displaced by the rising prices. More than 1.5 million US citizens reside in Mexico, but many more are thought to be remote working here on tourist visas, a trend migration experts say is expected to grow in the coming months and years.
A violent week in Ecuador has forced the president to move from the capital city of Quito to Guayaquil as he leads security operatives. President Guillermo Lasso has declared a state of emergency as the country has been besieged by car bombs and attacks against police, gas stations, and other public spaces in several cities across the country. The attacks are believed to be in response to prison transfers from violent penitentiaries. The president says the fighting and bloodshed inside and outside of the prisons is the result of drug gangs retaliating for his attempts to battle the drug trade. Let's go to El Salvador now, where a fear of gangs is scaling new heights. The El Salvador government is now destroying tombstones of gang members as part of the controversial war to crack down on their criminal activity. The reasoning is that the tombstones could become shrines for the dead gang members. The start of this policy coincided with the Day of the Dead commemorations held across Latin America at the end of October. President-elect Luis Inácio Lula da Silva has not been inaugurated yet, but he's off to work this week in Sao Paulo, getting ready for the tough job ahead. According to sources, Lula's team will need to get Brazil's parliament to pass a constitutional amendment by December 15th to allow for a raise on spending limits. The new left-wing government has made a lot of promises for social welfare spending, and Brazil's economy is not what it was at the turn of the century when Lula first took office. Lula is also expected to make his first international appearance in Egypt for the COP27 climate change conference. All this before his inauguration on the 1st of January. Now let's check out the stories we're following for next week. In Chile, we're watching the reactions to the first Chilean television series starring actors with Down syndrome. The series is called Chromosome 21. It's an 8-part police thriller. The director says the main characters who have Down syndrome are not shown as little angels, but as regular people with both good and bad traits. An interesting fact is that Chile is said to have one of the highest rates of children born with Down syndrome every year in Latin America. And now the answer to our news trivia. The answer is A. The number of tickets sold for the World Cup being played in Qatar is already approaching the 3 million mark, and Mexico is among the top 10 purchasing countries. According to FIFA organizers, it's the 5th country to have the most fans attending, after Qatar, the US, Saudi Arabia, and England. Argentina and Brazil are also in the top 10. November 20th is the start date of the event. And that's it for this week. We'll see you again soon on Latin America Now.